It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the movies of pre-Thanksgiving weekend, November 18th, 2005. Only 3 movies this time around, but some notable ones, including the latest Harry Potter movie, Joaquin Phoenix taking on the role of the Man in Black. Not that Man in Black, but the real Man in Black. But we also have Cillian Murphy in a very unusual role compared to his other 2 movies he was in 2005, which we'll get to that one in a little bit. But first, let's get to, of course, the biggest new release of the weekend, and there's no bigger new release than this movie here, which is, of course, the 4th installment of the Harry Potter series, and that is, of course, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. So yeah, this one's kind of an interesting movie in the Harry Potter series. In it, Harry's 4th year at Hogwarts, and in this one, he's chosen by the Goblet of Fire to compete in the Triwizard Tournament. But what's interesting about this movie in particular is that this was kind of the beginning of where the Harry Potter series was eventually going to go from this point forward, because this was the first PG-13 rated Harry Potter film, and it was a massive hit when it came out. It actually had the 3rd highest first weekend tally for a Harry Potter movie in this altogether. I mean, this was the highest grossing one up until the Deathly Hallows Parts 1 and 2 came out, but that's obviously because those were the last 2 movies in the series. But what's interesting about this one to me is that this feels like the one that gets forgotten and pushed to the side, because after this you have Order of the Phoenix, and then you have the 2 Deathly Hallows movies, which are often seen as as probably the best ones in the series in general, and then this one kind of gets pushed to the side a little bit, which is odd because this did get very high reviews. It was a very highly praised film. I think on Rotten Tomatoes it had like an 88% on there, which is very high up there with the highest rated of the series in general. So, does it really seem forgotten overall? I don't want to say it is, but I feel like it kind of does, because nobody really ever talks about this one in general, but I actually really like this one a lot. I don't think it's as good as Prisoner of Azkaban. That I think is still the bar up to this point, but it's kind of somewhere in the middle. It's close to the middle. I mean, I would say that this is definitely better than Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, but then again, those were the first movies in the series, and that was when they were trying to hone their craft, and they were essentially kids' movies. Prisoner of Azkaban was when we started getting into darker territory, and this is the darkest we'll get to at this point in time before we get to the next series of films in general. But Goblet of Fire, actually, the book itself, I remember vividly when it first came out, because we had a media play right in the middle of this area where it's no longer there anymore in Monroeville. And I remember that was one of the first Harry Potter midnight release parties I ever went to get this book. And I never read any other books before, but I just knew that the books were very popular, and my sister was very much into them. So my dad, my sister, and I went out there at midnight on the day that Goblet of Fire came out in stores in book form, and we picked that up in general. And yeah, it was kind of an interesting experience overall, and I think that's the only one I've ever been to of the, whenever they do the Harry Potter book release parties, because they were pretty big whenever a new book came out. Like, there were a ton of people there for the books in general. And but yeah, as far as this movie goes, I think it's a really good movie. I think it's a really solid film. There's a lot of great elements to it. The characters are maturing, the storyline is maturing, and that's what I really like about it a lot. We get some cool introductions in here. Cedric Diggory is in here, played by Robert Pattinson, who, of course, will become later known for a much more well-known franchise, but not a better franchise in terms of quality in general. But he would appear as a Batman later, so it would all come together in the end. This movie definitely shows that Robert Pattinson was a very good actor, and it was just basically the Twilight movies were so terrible. That's why the actors in those movies felt like they were so terrible, but once you took them away from Twilight, they really got a chance to shine on what they can really do. Kristen Stewart's another great example, Anna Kendrick's another great example. The list goes on. And Robert Pattinson, when he's not making movies like Twilight, you see where the true acting ability would come into play, and we would see it later on down the road, especially with Tenet and the Batman as well. But here, this is a really good movie. It's really cool to see the tournament they have in here. The visuals are still really cool to look at. It doesn't have that grand scale and epic scale that the Prisoner of Azkaban was, but considering how big the story for Prisoner of Azkaban was at that point, this one I'm okay with it being a little more subdued than the previous film in general. But like I said, it's going to get more intense as we move along here, because we've got Order of the Phoenix, and then we have Deathly Hallows split up into 2 movies. But Yeah, I really like this one a lot. Definitely one that I feel like is kind of the underrated little gem of the Harry Potter series. At least in my opinion, it is. But I don't know. What do you guys think out there? Do you think I'm overthinking it too much, or is this have more of a fan base than I'm led to believe? But overall, it's a really good movie. It's a Harry Potter movie. This is back when Harry Potter was still very much likable before the true author revealed her true colors. But that's for another day and time to discuss. But let's go ahead and move on to the other big new release of the holiday weekend, of the pre-holiday weekend, I should say. Joaquin Phoenix as the Man in Black himself, Johnny Cash. This is Walk the Line. I thought Joaquin Phoenix was kind of a lock to get the Oscar for Best Actor in here because, Jamie Foxx won the Oscar here last year for Ray, and this was basically Fox's answer to what happened with the success of Ray. But of course, Joaquin didn't win this Oscar for that movie, but he would eventually win it, of course, for Joker, and of course the Oscar that year went to Philip Seymour Hoffman and Capote, which I've talked about that movie beforehand. I talked about why that was why that was probably a better choice than Joaquin Phoenix. If you want to go check that out, I'll leave a link to that particular week where that review is in the corner there. But Walk the Line, this is the story about Johnny Cash's early life, his romance with the singer June Carter, played by Reese Witherspoon, his ascent in the country music scene, and his drug addiction. So typical music biopic type of stuff, but James Mangold directed this movie, and this was really the turning point for James Mangold's career in general, because before this, he had made some really good movies. He made Copland, which I think is a great movie, Girl Interrupted. He hit a snag with something like Kate and Leopold, and then came back a little bit with Identity, but after this point, he was just hitting bullseyes right out of the park, man. I mean, he did 3:10 to Yuma, which is a great underrated Western remake. Night and Day, which I actually do think is a lot funner than most people give it credit for. The Wolverine, of course, Logan, Ford v Ferrari. I still like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I don't care what anybody says. I'm never looking forward to seeing what he does with the Bob Dylan movie coming up, A Complete Unknown, which comes out later this holiday season. But looking pretty good there. But this was kind of his turning point where he just started turning out these gems one after another. And this is just an incredibly good film. It's a well-made film that works solely because of the performances that both Joaquin and especially Reese Witherspoon, are given to this. I mean, Reese Witherspoon, there's a reason why she won Best Actress here, because she just really sells the movie. She is just so damn good as June Carter, and it's just like, it's just hard to believe that this was the same woman that was in Legally Blonde a couple years ago, Like, what a transition that is, to go from Legally Blonde 4 years later to winning your first Academy Award, and rightfully so, because it is a really, really damn good performance. And you also have some good performances. You have Vivian Liberto, I think I'm pronouncing it right, Vivian Liberto, who was Cash's first wife, played by Jennifer Goodwin. Of course, Jennifer Goodwin's been in a lot of really good stuff over the years. Robert Patrick playing Johnny Cash's father, giving me a really damn good performance that doesn't really get a whole lot of attention in general here. Yeah, the formula of the typical musical biopic is still there. I mean, this is pretty much the inspiration for why we got Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. I mean, it's literally almost that movie to a T, but still a really damn good movie when we'll get to that one in a couple of years' time. But as far as this movie goes, it's a good movie. It's a really good film. Definitely very formulaic in terms of the story of how you do these musical biopics in general, but you got a lot of good talent in front of the camera, behind the camera to make it work. And just like with Ray, if everything's working and on all cylinders, it just works to a T. I mean, it's a film that is just so, so well done for what it is. I really like this one a lot. I can't recommend it enough. Even if you're not a big country music fan, you have to respect what Johnny Cash did back in the day and the music that he eventually brought to the table with his music in general. And it just really works very well here overall. I really like this one a lot, Walk the Line. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last film we have here, and that is Neil Jordan's Breakfast on Pluto. 2005 was definitely a risky year for a number of different movies. I mean, we haven't even gotten to the gay cowboy movie yet, but this is actually the first of two major movies centering around transgender leads that we're going to get into here. The other one I think was more successful, but I'll delve into that in just a second. But in this film, you have Cillian Murphy, like I said, in a radically different performance than his performance in Batman Begins or Red Eye, starring as a transgender woman foundling searching for love and her long-lost mother in small-town Ireland and London in the 1970s. In addition to Cillian Murphy, you have Stephen Ray, Brendan Gleeson, and Liam Neeson involved in the cast. And it's directed by Neil Jordan, who, of course, is not too far away from controversy in general, movies that get people talking. Of course, everyone knows about The Crying Game. Everyone knows about Interview with the Vampire, which was a big success. he hadn't really done anything of true noteworthiness since then, though. There's been a few movies here and there that got a little bit of attention overall, like Michael Collins was one of the big ones. In Dreams, which was what's more of a mainstream movie in general, but this was one of the last few films that he did that really got a lot of overall attention overall. But like I said, it's because of what the movie is about in general. And like I said, I think what really hurts the movie in the long run isn't even really the movie's fault, but the fact that a much better movie about a transgender person came out shortly after this, which was Transamerica with Felicity Huffman, which is, I think, a much better movie in general. But this isn't a bad movie either. This is a film that works mostly because of the performances. You know, Cillian Murphy giving a really solid performance in here, a good supporting cast with, talents like Brendan Gleeson, Liam Neeson, Stephen Ray. Just really, really good talent overall in here. The story, not really all that impressive overall, and I think that really dings the film a lot in the long run, but this is a movie that you watch for specifically for the performances. I think the performances really do stand out in here to make it worthy of watching in general. I think it's definitely one of Neil Jordan's stronger movies later in his career, but it's definitely not one of his better films in general. I think The Crying Game and Interview with a Vampire are much better films in general, but it's a good movie overall. Nothing I'd say is great in general, but yeah, just part of a really, really interesting time period in 2005 when these studios were taking big chances with movies like this. But yeah, this is one of those movies that was one of those examples. But not much more to say about this one. That is Breakfast on Pluto. And so, on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. We'll head into Thanksgiving weekend next time around with 6 more notable releases, including Paramount's answer to Fox's Cheaper by the Dozen remake from a couple years ago, Yours, Mine, and Ours. We also have the big screen adaptation of Rent, directed by Chris Columbus, Ryan Reynolds and Amy Smart starring in the romantic comedy Just Friends, Usher making his big screen debut along with Emmanuel Shariki in the mix. Just Like the Weatherman, another criminally underrated movie that came out around this time period. Harold Ramis's one of his best movies in general, with John Cusack, Billy Bob Thornton, The Ice Harvest. We'll talk about that one, and we'll also delve into a movie where George Clooney won his first Academy Award, Syriana. So, 6 big movies in general. We'll take a look at all 6 of them on the next episode. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So, with all that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.